40 minutes today, so we're going to make the most of it. I am also going live on my other TikTok page as well as YT, so I'm just trying to get everything up and running. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, Forever Evolving is on here. Let's see. Hello, welcome. Hi, Savannah. Welcome in. I'm actually going live on my other page too right now, the shop page. So for TikTok shop. So we'll see how this goes. I haven't done that in a little while. So I think for today, I am gonna just do some reading and discussion. Still talking about healing and growth, right? But from doing it from utilizing my 5-star rated self-help book. Hold on, I'm trying to get set up multiple places. Okay, there we go. Okay, and one more thing that I want to do before I get started. And I am just going to talk and read because I have limited time. So as people come in, they come in. And either way, I'm still recording on YT. So this is helpful for that page regardless, because TikTok has been strange. And I'm, my desire to try to appease this algorithm shrinks on a regular. So anyway, so we're going to be talking about my 5-star rated self-help book for healing and growth. For people who are new here, I'm just going to go over the things that I always cover when I talk about it. Oh, sorry, hold on the light. There we go. When I always talk about it for new peeps so that they can be familiar with what it is and make a informed decision about if you would like to purchase it, to have it be a part of your healing and growth journey. So I wrote this book to help any and everyone, essentially, who wants to learn more about how their brain works, how to stop just winging the human experience and actually have specific knowledge and tools and tips rooted in science to help you better manage your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And so the book does have representation for the Black community, but my readers are of all races and backgrounds. The reason being that the mental health tools in the book are still universal. One thing that we need to understand is that we all have the same structures and parts to our brain. So representation is about helping people feel seen and having examples that are about their specific learned experiences, but it doesn't change the fact that the tools that one human can use to, manage anxiety can still apply to another human, and so on and so forth. For people who are on this TikTok page that I'm pointing at right now, if you click on the TikTok shop, you'll be able to just swipe through and see what I'm talking about if you swipe through the photos. But yeah, so I'm going to be reading some excerpts while I'm on here just so people can get in real time a sense of the value that my book brings. Again, it is rated 5 stars. Hi, Lele, welcome in. It is rated 5 stars across the platforms that it's on. And yeah, we're just going to get started because I have limited time. So I'm sorry, y'all. I'm moving fast today. And the first page is a special message to my non-Black readers. This was my clear invitation to all to help them understand that, yes, we can have representation in a book, but it doesn't change the fact that the mental health knowledge still applies to all. Hi, Rising Phoenix, welcome in. Okay, I'm actually going to probably start by reading the special message. Since people are always curious, what does this even say? There's actually 2 special messages at the beginning of the book. There's a special message for my non-Black readers, and then there's a special message for all who choose to read this book. I'll read both. They're both only 1 page. So the purpose of these 2 messages that I put at the very beginning of the book is to set the tone and to make sure that every person is kind of understanding the overall purpose and how it still applies to them, regardless of the identities that they hold. Okay, so a special message to my non-Black readers. Thank you so much for choosing to read Bold, Black, and Becoming and for supporting a Black author. Since psychology applies to everyone, anybody, regardless of race or culture, can benefit from the mental health knowledge and tools I share in this book. Hopefully, you will learn a lot of valuable information that will be useful during the rest of your healing and growth journey. Along with the mental health benefits, you will also increase your awareness of Black experiences, and it may shed light on your areas of privilege. Of course, we all face hardships and have some privileges, but many of us have more privileges than others due to multiple factors, including race. Someone else's pain does not invalidate our own, just as someone else's success doesn't mean our accomplishments are less significant. Our suffering should not be a source of competition, but a source of empathy. We all deserve to be seen and validated. Your decision to read this book shows that in addition to caring about your mental health, because again, it's a mental health book for you to improve your mental health, right? So in addition to you caring about your mental health, you also care about understanding people who are different from you. I am so grateful for your willingness. When we empathize with each other, we create safe spaces for everyone. Our differences are some of the most beautiful parts of our humanity. However, we can only fully appreciate this when we live authentically, celebrate our uniqueness, and acknowledge each other's experiences. When we take the time to understand one another, we do less harm and deepen our human connections, ultimately making the world a better and more peaceful place for us all. Thank you so much for choosing to be part of this goal. So that is what the special message to my non-Black readers says, which is the first page of the book. And then the other special message, this one's shorter, as you can't really see because the light, sorry. This one's a little shorter, as you all can see. This one is the special message for all who choose to read this book. I will read this to set the tone too, and then we'll do some actual reading from the book. For people who have the TikTok shop up in this live, you can click on the shop, and if you swipe through the photos, you'll be able to see the table of contents in the TikTok shop, and then that will allow you to let me know what chapters you would like me to read from. It covers so much: trauma, anxiety management, relationship management, decision making, including like avoiding self-fulfilling prophecies, all of this stuff. So I put a lot in it. Okay, so a special message for all who choose to read this book. Before you begin, please read. Before diving into Bold Black and Becoming, it's important to know that it must be approached the same way I recommend you approach your self-development, with an open, curious mind. You may find ideas in this book that challenge your current beliefs, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that they have to change. That's entirely up to you. However, it is undeniable that having our beliefs challenged is an essential part of our personal development. After all, nothing changes if nothing changes. I am by no means telling you what to believe. That's not my right. We are all humans with free will, and your beliefs are rightfully your own. I genuinely desire for you to form your own perspectives because I do not have all the answers. None of us do. I'm simply presenting scientific facts and sharing skills and tips to help you better manage your mental health, while simultaneously giving you ideas to consider as you continue on your life's journey. Please feel free to disregard any part of this book you feel is unhelpful to you. I hope you get tremendous value from it overall. Happy reading, friend. So that's what it says. And the reason why, again, another reason why I included those special messages at the beginning is because I know we're all in very different places when it comes to the impact that trauma has had on our abilities to like be receptive or receive information, because a lot of us dealt with a lot of abuse or not having safe spaces. So it wasn't safe to learn or to think about things or to ask questions. And so there's a lot of healing that still needs to happen in those departments. So I wanted to include that kind of message to remind people to like prime their nervous system that like, if something you read is challenging a belief you have, it's still up to you what you believe or not, or what you decide to look into further or not. Like nobody is forcing anything on you, but my book is filled with science, right? And things that are rooted in actual research and have been validated over and over again. So we do want to be curious about like what our beliefs about certain things are based upon, because sometimes we're just holding beliefs because of longevity instead of actually seeking out knowledge to validate why we see things the way we do. And it's not even our fault, right? It's, again, that's a trauma response. Speaking of which, I think I'm just gonna, like I said, I have like 30 minutes. So I think for the sake of time, I'm gonna read from chapter 6 because that is the trauma response chapter and it's the most commonly requested chapter anyway. So it just makes sense to do that. I wanted to check over here though to see if I have this. Sorry, I'm trying to figure. There we go. That's what I want to do. There we go. Okay, I think I pinned it. Great. Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to read from chapter 6 of my book, which is called Trauma Responses. This particular chapter, just like it sounds, is all focused on like healing from trauma, what we can do in understanding that our trauma responses are not our personality. A lot of people have mistakenly kind of seen these trauma responses as their personality, right? They think that their struggles with anxiety management is who they are, instead of realizing that their struggles with anxiety management is largely due to people failing to teach them what they deserve to have been taught about emotional intelligence and emotional regulation. So what I love to do in the work that I do, whether it be with my clients, whether it be by being, on social media, whatever it may be, that I love. Thank you so much for the love, AJ. I love to help people remember that where you're at is not where you have to remain. And trauma just puts like a hold over us sometimes anyway, where we're mistakenly thinking that this is who we are fixed to be, instead of recognizing that it's what our experiences may be created within us. And we do have the power to like move from this place, even though it doesn't always feel like it. So, okay. So I'm just going to, where should I read from? This is the longest chapter. Surprise, surprise. I think I'm going to read from The Curse of Trauma and then maybe hop around from there. So each of us started life as a unique person, fully dedicated to self-exploration. From birth, our authentic selves lay within us, and the gift of life was our opportunity to discover who we already are, right? Let that like sink in. That's so important, right? A lot of us were taught, oh, awesome, AJ, I'm so glad. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your healing and growth journey, and I hope it helps so much. So if you've ever been around young children, you'll quickly notice the pure joy they experience from learning anything new, especially when it's something unique about themselves, right? That was all of us. We have to remember what we see in young children was also a representation of all of us at one time, right? And remembering that. Oh, that's awesome. So this innate, if you've ever been around young children, you'll quickly notice the pure joy they experience from learning anything new, especially when it's something unique about themselves. This is because self-discovery is central to our life's purpose. This innate drive we all started life with gave us an incredible opportunity to continue tapping in to who we were meant to become. However, this drive also made us very susceptible to the influence of others because as children, we had no frame of reference. We believed whatever we were told to believe about ourselves and others. We were curious, but also naive, which made us vulnerable to misguidance during our journey of self-discovery. When parents support and nurture their child's individuality and sincerely encourage internal exploration, their child can make substantial progress in getting acquainted with their authentic self, right? The child is also instilled with an enduring sense of identity and self-curiosity that will serve them well throughout adulthood as they connect more deeply with who they are. However, when parents have expectations or beliefs about who they want their child to be, specifically regarding their individuality, this promotes a detachment from genuine self-discovery, which will follow the child into adulthood unless unlearned. This is why self-exploration as an adult is imperative, mainly because so many people, when raising their children, did not understand this. Like, they didn't understand the true impact, the traumatic impact of, treating your child like they were a blank slate. There was a time where human beings thought we were blank slates before science advanced enough to prove to us that we're not, right? And that that's not how this works. Because remember, we're learning endlessly on this whole human journey. So there was times where we mistakenly believed that we, like, all people were blank slates. This is where we got a lot of the stereotype thinking from, of like people uh kind of like saying, oh, this my child, I have a boy, so his favorite color is blue, or I have a girl, so she's gonna like dolls, right? A lot of that was people not understanding that people are not a blank slate, but they are very vulnerable when they're children. So if you can convince children of anything, right? When we're a child, we have no frame of reference. We're very vulnerable to what we're taught. This is how you can take an innocent child and raise them to be racist or hateful in general, right? It's we're so susceptible to the influence of the adults around us, and not just what they directly teach, but also what they model, right? So this is true for the self-discovery journey as well. Oh, it's doing that whole auto thing. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, the earlier trauma occurs, the easier it is to mistake its effects as part of who we are, right? Our experiences shape our development. So trauma responses that develop early can seem normal. And this, again, is why people mistakenly think that their trauma responses are their personality. We assume these responses represent our authentic selves, even though they don't. They represent traumatized parts of us. There is usually some part deep inside us that feels like we are not entirely in touch with who we are, but we may struggle to figure out the exact cause on our own. Trauma responses are behaviors or thought patterns we develop to survive and navigate emotional and psychological distress. They vary from person to person, but here are a few examples of what trauma responses can look like. And then I list at this part, hey, Brianna, welcome in. I list at this part a few types of trauma responses. But the thing that we need to know is that trauma responses tend to be extreme versions of behaviors or ways of thinking that would serve us maybe in a more balanced way. Like, for what I mean by that, for instance, is people pleasing, right, is an extreme version, for instance, of what it would be like to understand the balance between caring for self and others, right? We are sometimes meant to self-sacrifice, or think about someone else and maybe put that person and their needs before us for a moment, or whatever it may be. But people pleasing is an extreme version of that. It's where you're not treating yourself like a person, essentially, and you're treating other people as if you're just of service to them. So you see how trauma responses are like often extreme versions of what if a behavior is that if it was balanced out would be healthier. That often is the case. So some of the trauma responses that are listed are people pleasing after growing up in an environment where love was highly conditional and your needs were frequently secondary to other people's needs. Another one is using alcohol or substances in general to disassociate from the ongoing trauma happening in an abusive relationship. Another one is avoiding social situations and even developing social anxiety disorder after being bullied. Another one is assuming the worst about new people after being hurt in the past, even with little evidence to justify doing so. Another example is being defensive and or aggressive in response to constructive criticism after growing up. This one is such a common one. I'm going to read it again. Becoming defensive or aggressive in response to constructive criticism after growing up with highly defensive parents who rarely took accountability for their actions. This is such a common trauma response because humans come into the world already we tend to have, as a young child, we already tend to have very strong emotional experiences, especially when we make mistakes or being corrected, right? We've all seen it with young kids. And that is a normal part of the human developmental stages. People have to teach us how to regulate our nervous system and tolerate when we're wrong or tolerate when we've made a mistake. It's something that we have to learn. We have to learn everything, right? We have to learn how to tie our shoe. We also have to learn how to tolerate the emotional discomfort that we feel when we've made a mistake. Hi, thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate it. So This is not in itself abnormal, but depending on how well the adults around us or the people raising us, whatever it is, responded to teaching us instead of exacerbating that defensiveness can get worse, right? I'm sure we all can think of individuals we've come across where you really can't tell them anything other than what they want to hear. And you have to remember that, like, people do not come into the world that way. So that means that instead of the adults around them growing up helping model, because modeling is such an important part of teaching. So you also have to be what you want to teach, right? Just like I would have to first learn German if I wanted to teach you German. Same is true of, like, I need to regulate my own nervous system and be able to handle feedback, right? If I want to model and teach a young child that. And so, but if you grew up in an environment where that was not happening, that was not being modeled, and also what was being modeled was highly defensiveness or attacking people when they give you any kind of feedback, it's teaching you the opposite. So by adulthood, it can make you very emotionally dysregulated, like even more so than you were as a child, with the concept or idea of having made a mistake. And that's only exacerbated and made worse if, when you made mistakes growing up, especially because the mistakes we make when we're little, they're just usually normal normal kid mistakes that are part of development. But if the people around us reacted in a irrational or abusive or harmful way, that is now pulling you even to more of a defensive extreme as you grow up, right? You're learning that, like, it's unsafe to make mistakes, or it's unsafe to admit that I made a mistake, or I have to prevent that at all costs because of the reactions that I received when I made those mistakes. So we have to remember that everything that happens to us when we're little, it becomes the, like, building blocks for how our brain will perceive things when we're older, right? It's so important. Like, this is it's not a small thing, right? How people are responding to us, it really is setting the tone. And thankfully we can unlearn and heal and all of that, but, like, prevention is better, right? Prevention is always better. And for people who are looking at the TikTok shop, thank you so much. Hi, honey. Thanks for the follow. What I was going to say is, when you open the TikTok shop, please swipe through the photos. It will answer so many questions that you may have that I might not be able to address right now for the sake of time, because I only have 20 minutes. So don't just look at the cover. There are other photos that I intentionally put in there that will answer a lot if you just swipe. And then also you can see reviews, and I am so honored to be able to say that they're all 5 stars all so far. So people are really finding value in my book, which is all I could ever hope for, right? That's why I wrote it, to help people. And yeah, so that was the only thing I wanted to say for the people who are on this particular live. And I have multiple lives going, so that's why I'm looking all over the place. Okay. So, all right. And then let's keep reading. So I gave a few examples. We're just going to keep reading. So it's clear how all these behaviors and thought patterns develop in response to trauma as an attempt to help us survive, right? We got to remember, we are part of the animal kingdom, so we act like animals do. When animals are in danger, they will adapt. They will do whatever they need to survive, especially if the danger is physical danger or anything like that. So this is why parents will mistakenly believe that they're teaching their child something by abusing their child, because they're mistaking our animal-like instincts for survival as the child having learned something. But if I were your boss, so here's an example of how we know why this doesn't work, right? If I were your boss, let's say it's your first day on the job, and I'm your new boss, and you just started, and I want you to learn a new skill at this job. And I set you in a room. Let's say you're working on a machine you've never seen before. And I set you in the room and I say, hey, Gary, I'm just making up a name. Hey, Gary, I want you to run this machine today, right? You just got here. You do not know anything about how this machine works, how this job works, right? But I say, hey, you got to do this. So now you're at this machine and I leave you there to work all day. Then you come back. Then I come back at the end of the day. And let's say you probably messed up a lot. You have no idea what this machine, I didn't teach you anything. I just told you what to do. I didn't teach you. I said, hey, work this machine, right? I didn't sit there and make sure you comprehended the things. I didn't train you, which would take weeks, not even, right? Or more, depending on what it is. So I just was like, figure it out. And then let's say I come back at the end of the day, you've messed up, and then I decide to be physically violent with you. Did I teach you how to use the machine? Did you learn anything did you learn anything new from that? Or did you go, oh crap, I will be harmed here if I do not do what this person wants. So I am going to try to figure out how I can pretend like I'm going to do what this person wants because I don't know what else to do. So that is what I mean by us being placed in a state of survival. When we are being physically harmed, emotionally, psychologically harmed, we are going to adapt to try to survive. But then we're in survival mode. We're not learning. Our nervous system is learning that that person's dangerous. Our nervous system is learning that that person's unpredictable. Our nervous system is learning that that person is irrational, right? But it's not teaching us anything. If I wanted to actually teach you how to use that machine, it would, if I was actually doing that, what would that include? That would include all the things you see in school, right? Natural consequences, right? Right? Maybe, let's say I am teaching you and I have reasonable expectations of you as you're learning. And let's say you show up late for work or something, right? Maybe you get written up because of that, right? That's a natural consequence. Nobody was abused, but there is a sense of accountability, right? There's a sense of self-reflection that is required because it's like, hey, you keep showing up late for work, so I'm going to have to write you up or whatever, right? That's a natural consequence. And an example of that for if you were a little kid would be like, oh, we forgot to clean up our toys last night. So today we're not going to be able to use this particular toy, right? Because we have to learn how to take good care of our things. That's a natural consequence. And if you have kids or you haven't been around kids, when you take away something that simple, right? The toy they love, it's like that the amount of distress that a child usually expresses. So it's like you don't need to, of course you don't, it seems crazy to have to even say this, but like we don't need to abuse people to teach them things. And then also abuse does not teach anything, right? But so like the reflection comes from that distress, that natural consequence. But also I'm going to have to teach you, right? Through repetition, through consistency, through explanation, through making a safe space for you to ask me questions. If you're asking me questions about the machine at the job, I have to have patience with you, realize that like you don't know what I know. I have to see things from your perspective, not my own, right? If I want to teach somebody something, I have to meet them where they're at, not where I'm at. If I'm seeing it from my level of understanding, then I'm not going to do very good at teaching, right? So, and we've all had teachers at school, right, where they're teaching you from a place of what they know. You done been in the whole class. You're like, you didn't really break things down to their simplest form, right? I don't know what you know. So like teaching really requires us to take the time to understand the student, whoever it is that we're teaching. What is their perspective? What is their current level of understanding? How do I meet them there and bridge them somewhere else and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, hopefully that helps. That was more than I expected to say, but I want people to understand why people are mistaking the trauma responses of abuse for like teaching, even though it's not. And we know it's not. Look at the world around you. We have a bunch of adults who have the mental and emotional skill set of a 2 to 3 year old. There's so many people walking around like that. And that's because they were failed. They were not taught things. They were harmed and they didn't deserve any of that. They were an innocent child just trying to go through the developmental stages. But now we're all experiencing the impact of that trauma, right? Right? So yeah, until we recognize that we're doing a lot of this to ourselves and that it's preventable, the cycles continue. And we have to take accountability, but people also have to have taught us how to take accountability with grace. I'm having a rough day. Is it okay to DM you? Yeah, of course, absolutely. Sage, you definitely can. That's deep and makes a lot of sense. Yes, and enjoying your book. Oh, I'm so glad, Teresa. I'm so glad to hear that. And I hope you continue to enjoy. You said, oh, that's awesome. Your daughter bought it for you. That's amazing. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Okay, make sure you're highlighting too and taking notes. That's definitely a really important part because this is not just like a book that you read. It's one that you reference, right, as needed. I go over like specific things to do when you're having specific struggles. Speaking of which, I might hop around now. But I do want to note this. If y'all want me to read this part, I am happy to. But I only have like 15 minutes, so we can only choose like one more thing. But this is still in the trauma chapter, and it's called Healing Your Relationship with Making Mistakes. This is one of my favorite parts in my book because this is an area, like I was just saying, that a lot of us struggle with because of how people responded to us as little kids when we made mistakes. And, you know, if you grew up in a home where they had developmentally impossible expectations of you, right? If they were expecting you at, you know, 3 years old, 4 years old to be able to regulate your emotions consistently, that's an impossible expectation. That is, I cannot stress this enough, that is the equivalent of expecting your 3-year-old to be an engineer or brain surgeon, because it's impossible, right? It's impossible because they're not developed. They haven't developed enough for that, right? They have the ability to eventually be good at emotional regulation, but in order to get there, they have to teach, right? I mean, you have to teach. The people around them have to teach. So it's so important to remember that. Okay, so I think I'm gonna skip to something else. So we talked a lot about trauma. So let's do a lighter topic, because the book's not all about trauma. That's just one chapter. Let's see. Let's see. Where do I want to go? Maybe something about the relationship management stuff. That's a little, or making decisions. People really like that too. Specifically about like how to know if the way you're thinking about making a decision in your life, especially like with ending relationships, things like that, because this is something that really trips people up. Hold on, I have to pull it up to find the exact page that I'm looking for. I have the PDF, of course, because it's my book. So I just need to find the page I'm looking for. So give me a moment. Let's have to pull up the manuscript and do Control Find, because I'm struggling to find the exact page I'm looking for. Okay. So this particular part that I want to read before I have to hop off is about hope, because hope is a tricky emotion. We have all, at one time or another, fallen for this trap of not being able to tell the difference between the types of hope that we're basing our decisions on. Okay, here we go. I found it. Okay. Oh, I was so close. I'm literally on page 67 and it's on 65. So close. Okay. Oh, no. Actually, no, it's not. I'm looking at the one in, okay, that helped me. But I still was very close, but that's not actually where it is. I'm looking at it in Word, and I should have opened the actual PDF instead of Word. But that's okay. It's in the short-term versus long-term distress. Okay, so this is in chapter, so it's page 59. This is in chapter 3, which is called Be Response Focused. So this is the mindset that helps us make the best decisions. Okay. And so a lot of us were never taught how to make decisions. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into decision making, but I wanted to, in my book, include some really valuable information to improve your overall decision making in your life, right? And one of the sections is the short-term versus long-term distress. And this also talks about the different kinds of hope and how we can make sure that we're not falling for the trap of like hope that is not rooted in reality is probably the best way of putting it, or at least the present reality. So I'm just going to read from the beginning of this subsection of this chapter. So short-term versus long-term distress. Sometimes when we feel helpless, it's not because we don't have things we can do, but because we don't like what the problem calls us to do. In other words, it's not that we don't know how to solve our problem, but we don't like what we need to do to improve our situation. For example, most of us know when we are in an unhealthy or stagnant relationship, but we don't like that this realization calls us to end the relationship altogether. Even after countless failed attempts to improve the relationship, we continue making whatever excuse we can to lead us away from the correct decision of going our separate ways. That's the thing about free will. We get to choose what our decisions are based upon. Making decisions that are good for us and that genuinely respond to the problem, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable, is always best. However, we often choose to make decisions that seem less hard in the short term. Hence why this section is called short-term versus long-term distress. Hopefully I can read this whole part before I have to go. Yeah, I probably can. I'm gonna read fast. Okay. Y'all gonna get a whole subsection of the book. So, like I said, it covers so much. Like my book covers so many different parts of the human experience. So if you name something in the comments, odds are I at least touched on it in the book to some degree. The book is on TikTok Shop, and that's all I can say. Don't, because on TikTok, all you can say is that. Hopefully you understand. Okay. And then also remember, y'all, never mind, I can't say more because I don't want to deal with TikTok and it's whatchamacallit, its problems. Yeah, also just a quick note, y'all, when people are on TikTok, please don't ask them things like that, because if you didn't know this, TikTok is very strict. So it puts us in like a really bad position. I know you don't mean to, but like we don't. So whatever you're looking at, you usually have the information you need to find it. So TikTok Shop, TikTok Shop, TikTok Shop. No, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I think it's a really stupid rule. So, but okay. Where were we? Okay, so most of us know when we are in an unhealthy or stagnant relationship, but we don't like that this realization calls us to end the relationship altogether. Even after countless attempts to improve the relationship, we continue making whatever excuse we can to lead us away from the correct decision of going our separate ways. That's the thing about free will. We get to choose what our decisions are based upon. Making decisions that are good for us and that genuinely respond to the problem, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable, is always best. However, we often choose to make decisions that seem less hard in the short term. We are frequently tempted by what feels easiest, right? We've all been there, right? Because what feels easiest in the moment feels like, okay, I just want to do that. But the problem is it comes with consequences. Unfortunately, in a lot of situations, what feels easiest often deters us from choosing what is best for us, and ironically ends up causing us more problems in the long run. There is one emotion we have to be particularly aware of during our decision-making process. That emotion is hope. When we are making a decision, we must remain mindful of the type of hope our decisions are based upon. Hope for how we wish things could be, and hope informed by what seems most likely to happen based on our experiences in the situation, are two very different types of hope, right? So hope based on, thank you so much. I'm so glad. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And also y'all can send me DMs if you have questions, but I'm just limited on live. So, and again, I don't like it either. I'm just letting people know, because I know if you don't go live, you might not be aware of that. But that's TikTok's limitation. But just send me a DM. Like if you have any question or you're confused about anything, okay, you can always message me. And then the DMs I can explain. So, okay. So there's two types of hope, right, y'all? There is the hope of what we wish things could be, and the hope that's rooted in us actually analyzing reality and what's been happening, right? And so it helps us determine what's most likely to continue happening. And so we have to be careful. We have to be careful. Okay, so the first hope, right? The hope of what we wish things could be is very appealing and can draw us further into a cycle that in reality doesn't seem to be improving. Whereas the latter is so hope rooted in reality, essentially, is rational and sheds light on whether the situation is genuinely worth more time, effort, and patience, or calls for a different response. In situations where we are not the only one who determines the outcome, such as in relationships, so this part I want to make sure I get to before I have to go, we must be wary of hope based only on how we wish things could be, because in those situations, we are not the only ones that hold power, right? Okay, we must remember the only person we control is ourselves. This means when we are trying to resolve a situation in a way that also requires someone else's efforts, even if we do all we can, it still won't lead to change without that person's consent and participation. So it's not enough for you to just keep trying harder. Because no matter what you do, because I'm not going to have a lot of time to read this next part, so I'm just going to explain it because I have to go. So no matter what you do, the next part is going to break down, right? The next part's going to break down that since I only control me, like that is just a fact. That is called what we call in science and in psychology an existential given, meaning in non-science terms, it is what it is. I only control me. That is a fact, which means that if I am in a relationship with one other person, regardless of what kind of relationship it is, no matter how hard I try, even if I'm doing all my self-work, even if I am taking feedback, even if I'm growing, even if I'm working on myself, because you got to do that too, making sure you're checking your own biases, making sure that you are addressing how you contribute to the problems that are happening, because everything is a dynamic. It's not just the other person. So even if it's that we are enabling that other person's mistreatment of us, that is still something we are responsible for. But we also have to see how we're showing up and take accountability if we want to grow. Otherwise, we'll just probably find ourselves in another relationship that's identical, just with a different person, because if we don't work on ourselves, we're going to gravitate towards a similar situation. But if we are doing the work, let's say you actually really are seeking help, seeking knowledge, working on yourself, you really, really are, like you really, really are. You can only get to 50% if we're talking about a monogamous relationship, if we're talking about a relationship between you and another person, because they hold the other 50%. So if they are not also doing self-work, even if they're saying they want to, because everyone desires to change and grow to some degree, because it's an innate part of our humanity. I firmly believe that we are designed for growth. We are designed for learning. This is why little humans are so hungry to learn and they ask so many questions. And you have to remember that was once you. But the thing is, trauma has caused a lot of people to be strongly derailed from that reality of their humanity. So even though that is still somewhere in there, right? It's not something that they connect with or identify with anymore in a healthy way. So somebody can tell you they really want to change, especially after they did something horrible or whatever it may be. And that may be true, but a desire for change in itself does not create change. I can desire something, does not mean that I'm doing anything to obtain it. So somebody telling you that they want to change is like 1% of what it's going to take to actually change. Hopefully that's making sense. So that's what the rest of this subsection of my book covers. Again, my book is 5-star rated on TikTok Shop, and I'm about to get off so I can say this really quick and elsewhere, but TikTok Shop, just in case, because I don't want any problems with TikTok. So on TikTok Shop and elsewhere, if you all want to look at the TikTok Shop listing, I have another TikTok page where that's where I have it pinned. So unfortunately, the people who are on this one, you're in a different place, but whatever, you have the information you need. And if people have questions, you can send me a DM. But again, my book covers a variety of different areas of the human experience. It also has representation for people of color, but my readers are of all different backgrounds and identities. We need to understand that representation helps decrease stigma, but it does not change the fact that these are universal mental health tools. So if you are not Black or a person of color and you read this book, what it's going to still do, that's only about 4% of the book that focuses on the Black representation pieces. It's all because it's a self-help book at the end of the day. So it 96% of it focuses on the mental health stuff, right? That applies to every human being. If you have a human brain, it applies to you. But for that other 4%, regardless of your racial background, it's still going to increase your empathy and social awareness, because we have to learn about one another. We have to understand how we're impacting each other as human beings. And you all know that I always talk about the fact that who causes other human beings trauma? Other human beings. So if we only care about ourselves and we're not willing to understand how we're affecting one another, that does not help us all as a whole, right? It's important that we understand each other and care about each other. I know it still seems like a crazy concept for a lot of people, but like we're all in this together. So we're doing ourselves a major disservice as a species by not like understanding and living by that. But if people have questions or are confused by anything, because again, TikTok has its limitations, please just send me a DM. I promise I will answer you in the clearest way possible that way. For people who want to work with me, the easiest thing to also say is to please just send me a DM. Hi, Jen, welcome in. I can give you more information about that as well, whether that be for therapy or for coaching. But thank y'all for hanging out. Hopefully the excerpts that I to know how you did. Did you? Yeah, Jen, send me a DM. I'm happy to answer some simple questions about that. But if you want detailed help about that, then I would recommend working with me, because that's something that I help people with all the time. Oh yeah, that's so funny. Oh my god, I hardly use that with the other place you just said, because I'm not. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't. It doesn't like push my stuff out on there for some reason, but it's probably because I hardly use it. So that's probably why. Anyway, but I'm so glad you found me again on here. But yeah, so thank y'all for hanging out. Remember to move through the world with empathy and curiosity, not hate and judgment. We must be willing. Hi, Omar. Welcome in. Good to see you. We must be willing. We must be willing to learn from the mistakes of the humans before us. We are here to learn, grow, and evolve. We are not here to stay the same as those before us. That would be a waste of this lifetime, right? So we have to be willing to expand. We are here to expand. You are more. There is more than what is happening right now. Even if you are in a great place, there is still more that you can access within yourself and in your abilities and in your healing and in your growth. And that is meant to be a beautiful thing. To live a life of evolving is a beautiful thing. It's a life of stagnancy and sameness and anger that we won't deal with. That is not a fun or beautiful thing, right? So, but let me know if anyone has any questions about where to find this or anything. Just please send me a DM, because I'm tired of dealing with TikTok and its shenanigans. So I'm not even going to try to anymore. Okay. But I love y'all. I will see you all again next time. I think I'll get on tomorrow again at 3 p.m. CST. So I will talk to y'all then. Bye-bye. I have so many things to hang up from. My goodness. I have like 3 things going. Okay. Bye, you all. Thank you. Oh, so far away. There we go.